Welcome to View from the Top. We've got a special episode for you today. I'm bringing on one of my dear friends, Ben Utecht. For those of you, some of you may recognize his name. He's a speaker, he's an author, he's an entrepreneur. He also just happens to also be a Super Bowl champion tight end. And he has amazing stories about what he's been through, the peaks and the valleys, as he would say, in his life, and what has kept him moving through that. We talked a lot about failure and preparation and how to lean on your beliefs, your fundamentals, like the back to the basics when things get hard. And I think that message, just in the world we're all in right now, is focus on what you can control, which is the things you know, the things that are innate to you. The things that matter most to you are typically the things you have some control over. And I think it's a great reminder for all of us as leaders is how to navigate in times of uncertainty and challenge. Is we know we'll get through it because we always have. And so having that faith that we will get through and having that foundation is a lot of what Ben and I talk about in this podcast. So I'm hoping this is a huge inspiration for all of you listening. And I hope that you take this podcast and you share it with somebody else that you know needs it. I think that's the most important thing is these messages need to be shared, right? We need to take them and impact others with it. So that's my hope. I really hope you enjoy the conversation with Ben. Welcome to the View from the Top. Ben Utecht, thank you for being here.
You're welcome, Jamie. Anything for you. Love it.
I appreciate that. And you really do mean that. Anytime I text you, I'm like, I know Ben's up for it. I know he'll say yes to, I don't abuse it or ask you to do anything too crazy. But thank you for being here again. I know you were on the Superpower Success podcast, and you were one of the first people that came to my mind when I was relaunching on just the success that you've had, that you're still having, but the honesty and vulnerability and everything that we have talked about what it means. I mean, it's not all highlight reel.
Oh, right.
But yet there's beautiful things in all of it. So that's what I want to talk about today. So I'd love for you to start give us a little bit of background for maybe people who don't know you, where you've been, where you are today. And then I want to dive and take a lot of our time and dive into the journey and what's that's number.
Well, thank you again for having me. You've been a great mentor over the years, and I really appreciate everything you've done for me. Yeah, what an interesting journey. I mean, and I think that's one of the universal connections between humanity, right? Every one of us has a story. Every one of us has our own novel of purpose. And mine started in a small river town in Minnesota, Hastings, Minnesota. And my whole life was shared between my passions of athletics and the arts. And sports was something that just really took off for me early, and was blessed to receive a scholarship to play football at the University of Minnesota and had a great career there as a tight end. And then that continued into fulfilling a dream, which was to play in the NFL. Again, unbelievably blessed to become a part of the Indianapolis Colts and win a Super Bowl in 2006. Team passes from Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning and being taught how to be a better player and a better man from Hall of Fame coach Tony Dungy. Kind of one of those things I have to often, even now, being out of the league for 16 years, sit back and just pinch myself like, wow, I got to be on that kind of a field. And that was really such an amazing period of my life because I got to play for Tony Dungy, who was the first to win a Super Bowl built on servant leadership. He said, if you build better men, you get better football players. And that was pretty profound. Jamie, he walked into that first team meeting, and the very first thing he said to the team was, if you're sitting in this room and your entire identity is wrapped up in a sport, you've totally missed the purpose of your life. And that took the oxygen out of the room. I was like, whoa, I've never heard a coach, start a team meeting that way. And that's what his role was as a coach. We have to win. But more importantly, we have to build a family. And as I've shared in the past, the acronym for family in football is forget about me, I love you. Power of selflessness. So that's the kind of environment that I was in, and was so blessed to be in the NFL for 7 years. That was cut short, unfortunately, due to concussion, and was a big trial period in my life, starting to experience some cognitive issues. And we had just had our first daughter. So we decided it was time to my brain and walk away from football. But then that really opened the door to pursue the passions that I knew I was called towards, which was using my voice. And that was as a musician. Believe it or not, I had signed a record deal. I was playing for the Indianapolis Colts. And so we moved to Nashville to start singing. I'd been singing professionally since college. And so that was a lot of fun to really pour into that passion calling. And then the second, as you know, is my speaking. I knew I wanted to tell a story, but I didn't know what the story was until my time with Indianapolis. And that became the story. How can you build culture? And that's something obviously you and I are in total alignment on, and probably the most talked about theme in business. And so I began telling that story, and it brought me into, just an amazing speaking career, being able to travel the country and speak to, thousands of business leaders and inspire them towards looking at culture objectively, that it can be a product, that it can be materialized, because you're always going to have a culture by design or default. So why not design it? And that just caught fire. Shortly after, was invited into the C-suite of a private equity company in Minnesota as their chief culture officer, which gave me the opportunity to be an operationalist, not just an inspirationalist, and was in that role for a handful of years and wrote my first business book, The Champion's Creed, Transform Your Culture Through the Power of Belief, and then just have gone full into speaking, to building products that are designed to help organizations build championship culture.
I love that.
And most importantly, I'm a husband and a father. My wife, Karen, I met through Fellowship of Christian Athletes at the University of Minnesota. She was the captain of the women's golf team, Miss Minnesota 2000. So I married up.
Awesome. Good.
And she blessed me with 4 incredible daughters. And so I love being a girl dad. I'm meant to be a girl.
You are meant to be a girl dad. Like, your girls have no idea how lucky they are. And we were just talking about just some amazing things that are coming, because you have raised amazing women who work hard, just like you, right? But have that solid foundation and beliefs. And, I think it's interesting. I don't know if you ever told me the story about the first day that Tony walked in and said that. And I could see, right, at that age, and you've got a lot of people who have been told that they're the best their entire lives, right? And they've been under a spotlight. And then you tell them this isn't everything, right? He shook that loose in you. And then I hear your story and everything you've done. It's just one more level to your purpose, right? None of this negated anything you did before. It's just these stepping stones to get closer and closer and closer to what it is that you were put on this earth to do. When you look about, and I know a lot, you didn't list everything you're doing. I mean, I know you've got a lot when you say products and other things going on. Right now, what's lighting you up the most when it comes to like your purpose? Like today, like you're like, this is the thing I'm most excited about.
I would say transforming people. Honestly, I think that the thing that I have fallen in love with when it comes to culture is that not only can you transform revenue, not only can you improve operational efficiency and improve the workplace environment, but most importantly, you can build a legacy that is remembered for transforming people. And that's a massive responsibility. And what a powerful opportunity to use the platform of work to send people out better than when they came in. And when you see it happen, even at home, when I see it happen in just my role as a parent, and you see the maturation process and you see people wake up for the first time and grow and develop themselves and reach their potential, man, there's nothing like that, because then they become the storyteller of that culture. And that to me is what gets me lit up.
That's legacy leadership, right? That's leadership that where you're planting trees you'll never sit in the shade of, right? Kind of thing. And I talk to leaders about that. Like, are you making decisions every day that are leading to that? Or are you just making decisions for what maybe feels good or is easiest today? And it's hard. It's hard if you're not surrounded by that. What's one thing, I think it is easy. You have had a lot of success. And every time I think of the word success, I use quotes. And the highlight reel of your career is pretty cool, right? To see, and things you can say. What's one thing that people maybe wouldn't know about that journey, right? Something behind the scenes or just struggles you've had?
I really struggled with fear. I think fear of failure is it's one of the most impactful things that happen to the people and hold people back from reaching their potential, right? Because most of the things that we are afraid of never happen. Most of the things that we worry about never happen, right? But I was always one of those athletes, and even one of those business leaders today where I can find my mind wandering into some darkest places, and I can choose to end up listening to a voice that is trying to tear me down, that's telling me I'm going to be a failure. I'm not going to make it. You're not going to be able to provide for your family, which means you're not a good enough father. You're not a good enough husband. So just to be totally transparent, like that was a big problem. That was a big problem that I had to battle with,
And I think thank you for sharing that. Cause I think you still deal with it, right? At times. And I think the openness of like, you never get past it. What you do is you catch it maybe sooner, right? And you have the tools and the things that can kind of help you get through it. But it's always, that voice is always going to be there. And there's some value to that voice a little bit too, right? It's there to maybe protect you, but most people don't know how to kind of push through.
Yeah. And that's where the importance of preparation in sports is so profound, because a lot of times I found that the more I prepared, the more film study, the more on the field training and preparation that I put into getting ready for an opponent, the more confidence I had, the less I could hear that voice. Because what I was doing is I was actually embracing the voice of truth in my mind and in my heart. And so for me, it was about that preparation for being prepared for what's to come, and utilizing the tools like you talked about that are actually going to speak truth into my life, right? So that other voice gets filtered out.
I love that. Do you remember, I call it the climb moment, like a moment where you were like, from the outside, everybody thinks my life is glamorous, right? Or glorious. And on the inside, you were burning out, or you were just, it just didn't feel as good on the inside. Do you remember a moment in your career?
Sure.
Yeah. How many?
I'm in one right now, but I can tell you, the start of my football career was that moment, because I was one of the top tight ends in the country, supposed to be one of the highest drafted players out of the University of Minnesota. And I had a debilitating injury against Wisconsin at the end of the season. And I ended up tearing my abdominal muscles from the pubic bone on both sides and getting carted off the field. And I went from being a potential first round draft pick to not getting drafted at all. And, that was incredibly difficult and challenging, because I had my degree, but I put all my eggs in the football basket.
Yeah.
I'll never forget driving up to my agent's office in a rainy Minnesota day after I wasn't drafted, just listening to that voice saying your career is over. What are you going to do now? And 2 months before that day, I had a chance to speak at an event on the University of Minnesota campus in front of about 700 alumni. And I got to be the opening speaker for Tony Dungy. So I get up in front of all these alumni and I say, "Hey, coach," he's sitting right in front of me. "Hey, coach, if you really care about the University of Minnesota," because he was a former Gopher. "So, hey, if you really care about the University of Minnesota, you're going to draft me in the upcoming draft." Everybody gets a kick out of it. He was gracious enough to respond. He came to the microphone and he said, "Ben, we know how talented you are. We'd love to have you, but we drafted a first round player last year. And so we're not going to be looking at tight ends this year." And then he stepped away from the podium and he put his hand on his chin as if he was being downloaded something, back to the microphone. And he said, "You know what? I'm going to make a promise to you in front of all these people. If for some reason you slip through the cracks, if for some reason you don't get drafted, I promise I'll be the first person to call." So fast forward 2 months. I get out of the car with my dad. We go into my agent's office. My only chance to play in the NFL is the free agent market. These are the leftover players that rarely make a team. 5 seconds after the free agent market opens, the phone in the middle of my agent's desk rings, and I pick it up. And who do you think it was?
Tony Dungy.
Was the first call, along with Hall of Fame general manager Bill Polian. And they said, "Ben, we didn't think this was going to happen. We know that all of the doctors red flagged you as too much of a health risk, but we've dealt with your injury before. So here's what we want to do. We want you to be a Colt. We're going to send you to the top surgeon in the country. And all we want you to do the first year is get better. You don't even have to play, and we'll pay you as though you're a playing rookie. That doesn't happen.
I don't know this story. Like, of all the stories I've heard, like, that does not happen.
Doesn't happen. They gave me $230,000 that year to recover. So that whole period of time, Jamie, I'm going through this, as you can imagine, this emotional roller coaster. I went from being at the top to being at the bottom, to being awarded this blessing, to having surgery. And now I have to make this climb out of surgery, fix my body, regain my strength, try to adapt to an NFL environment where these are the top 1% of players in the world,
right?
To make my dream a reality. And so I'm just going through this wave of emotional, crisis over that whole off season and summer. So I recover. The next year comes around, and the last preseason game, the first round tight end they took the year before me goes down with an injury.
Dallas Clark.
So I get to start Sunday night kickoff, national television against Ray Lewis and the Baltimore Ravens. And I have the game of my life. And I get the game ball. I catch a touchdown in the third quarter. They botched the coverage. Peyton saw me, made the catch, ran through the safety to score a touchdown in my very first NFL game. And as I look down at the safety who's on the ground, I realize it's Deion Sanders, arguably the greatest defensive back in the history of football. And so all that to say, I know that was a long answer, but all that to say, we go through those periods in our life where we find ourselves at the summit, and the next moment we find ourselves in the valley. And it's about finding the consistency. It's about finding the mean and staying balanced through that whole process, because the balance is what helps you sustain an attitude and a mindset that's capable of enduring and persevering through fortitude, right? Which is choosing courage in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
And so that process is what prepared me for the harvest. And because I kept that balance, and because I believed that the outcome, if I put in the work, was going to be fruitful, it happened. It was provided. And so
that's an amazing story.
Started on that team, for the next 3 years, and was a starting tight end in the Super Bowl. So, God has a plan, and I had a purpose and a calling, and I just had to trust that. I just stayed balanced through the fire.
It really is. And it's such a good message. And you answered like so many of my questions in that story. So I actually really love that story of that recovery and transformation, and having to just constantly, life is about that. It's not, we were just talking, I'm in a valley right now. I'll be honest. And thank you for saying, I don't know if you're in a valley, but it's like, it's constant, and you can't celebrate the highs if there aren't lows, right? If you don't have that darkness and light, right? That goes through your life. You've gone through a lot of what I would call identity shifts through all of this. And I think a lot of successful people get to the top of a mountain and then are like, is this all there is? Like, I don't think this is all there is, right? There's got to be more to my life. There's got to be more to my purpose. And that moment is an identity shift. And it's really hard to not just go back to what you know, to not just stay in what feels safe. How have you gotten through those identity shifts? And, what do you lean on during those moments?
Yeah, it's a good question. In sports, whenever a team is struggling with identity, coaching immediately falls back to the fundamentals and techniques, right? But those fundamentals and techniques are not by default. They're chosen. They're chosen because they're practicable. And so that has always been my approach to the foundation of belief, which drives values, is that if I don't have my own belief fundamentals and techniques that I can't fall back on especially when I'm in the valley, it's on both sides, right? When you're on the summit, it's different. It's a different form of belief, right? That keeps you from becoming entitled. That keeps you from, right? When you're in the valley, you're accessing beliefs that are designed to strengthen and to uplift and to encourage. And so for me, I would say that it was important that I had a foundation of belief fundamentals and techniques, so that if I was going through the fire, I could come back to those, right? I could come back to those and I could focus on them. That having that foundation is really what allowed me in those periods of time to not go back to hitting rock bottom, but to landing
The valley is not as deep.
exactly. Yeah. And the fact that those beliefs were connected to practicable exercises that I could tap into in order to kind of develop and pull me out of
I love that. I love that. And so you've talked a lot about beliefs. Is there a specific belief you had to unlearn at some point along the way to kind of get you to the next level of success? Because in my own experience, there are beliefs that sometimes they are given to you, right? As children, right? You absorb beliefs. And then some of us just carry those throughout our entire lives when we don't really even know the source of them.
Yeah.
Is there anything you've had to unlearn or any beliefs that you've had to shift in any way?
One that comes to mind is this idea that we can't reach perfection. And I think the word perfect it can be triggering, right? Because none of us are perfect.
Right.
And we all fall short of our potential. But does that mean that the word isn't valuable?
Right.
And that what it means isn't valuable? And that we shouldn't just accept that there's no way that we can be perfect, and then we never actually pursue it. And that was the thing that I learned in Indianapolis, is that they were unafraid to claim the expectation of perfection. Their demand and their expectation was perfection. Now, of course, they knew that there were going to be mistakes. Of course, they knew that there were going to be attitude failures and mental failures and physical failures. But they placed the bar at perfection, because if we're striving for it, if we're striving to be the absolute best that we can possibly be, we will be better every single day.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's shoot for the stars. If you land on the moon, right? We're still there. It's
ways to say it that your listeners might understand more personally to themselves. But I just thought that was really, I thought that was really profound. To sit in a meeting room and have coaches say, no, like, this is what we expect. We expect you're going to take the perfect step. You're going to place your hands perfectly where they're supposed to go. You're going to see the defense perfectly as it's designed so that you can make the right decision. And so that level, especially when you're dealing with the most competitive people in any industry, right? When you get that to a competitor, then you've just ignited this quality that is going to go after it.
Right.
And so that was an interesting belief that I think I had to adjust to that level of expectation. But if anything, it's been a part of the trajectory of my life going forward and what I try to apply in anything that I do.
How is your definition of success different then? Let's just say during your time in Indianapolis versus now, right? Life looks very different for you. How has that definition changed?
Oh gosh, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but I feel like as we age, I've found myself getting more emotional recently at everything, whether it's
I've always been that way, but I love hearing that other people are joining me.
whether it's it can be a cat video on Instagram, or it can be, I'm just finding that my sensitivity to the things that matter most in my life is becoming deeper. And that's made me, that's been a process of really kind of stripping away the materialism and the vanity that exists within my personality. We all face that. And so if you're able to realize it, then you have an opportunity, to create new beliefs that can guide your behaviors towards, really reflecting, I think, a more healthy version of what success looks like.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, whatever house I'm in, whatever's in my bank account, all of that is going to go away.
Right.
And the most important thing to me is that, my wife looks back on our marriage and says, man, what a blessing he was. And my daughters look back and, that, I know that sounds a little corny. That's a Nicholas Sparks movie, but
I love that.
Well, honestly, yeah. It's, materialism is important. We need it to live and survive. There's nothing wrong with pursuing it.
It just lessens its grip on us, I think, as we get older.
I'm trying to not make it a part of my identity.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm reading a book right now called The Second Mountain, and they talk about the fact that the first mountain is about achievement and challenge and conquering. So if you think about, the first part of your career, it's like how far can I go, right? And how many things can I collect, right? Whether that's achievements or titles or whatever it is. And the second mountain is around surrender and legacy. And that, right? You're describing kind of the whole point of this podcast is that it doesn't negate anything you've done up to this point and all the achievements, and you'll have more achievements. It's just not what drives us in the second mountain, right? It's about something else, and we can still do fantastic things.
Man, that'll preach right there. And that's a paradox. Surrender is a paradox, and it's been a big part of my life because, when you hear the word surrender, and you connect it just directly to how the world defines it, it's failure. It's giving up, waving that white flag. It's putting your hands up. I give up. But when it comes to applying that to your life's purpose, to your value, to your significance, surrender is actually the catalyst for winning.
Right.
It's like what surrender is the ability to let go of defining yourself by the outcome and trusting that the purpose of your life, the value of your life, the significance of your life, and your willingness to give everything you have in whatever you do is going to provide.
Right.
Does that make sense?
100% does.
Okay.
But I think early in your life, early in your career, you don't have that solid foundation.
No,
I mean, I wish I had.
In fact, that's been a concept we've talked a lot with our girls. It's probably one, I've had multiple conversations with my oldest daughter, just turned 17, and it's probably the thing she has said to me is the hardest to understand. She's like, I think about the power of surrender, but I don't know. I don't understand. Like, how do I do it? Like, because every time I'm confessing that that's what I need to do or praying that that's what I need to do, I just automatically go back into taking.
Like, I want to control, right? I want to grab the wheel. Yeah.
And so
It's
you're right.
lives are that way.
Hey, and that's okay. That's where the process of pain and suffering and trials and obstacles is so valuable. And that's another thing to just, as we're talking about this view from the top, like embrace the suck.
Yes.
Right? Because there are so many silver linings, so many opportunities to grow. Tony Dungy told this story once. He and his wife have an adoption ministry that they are very active, and they have a very large family. It's 10 or 12 children that they've taken in. One of their children was diagnosed with a nerve disorder that didn't allow him to feel pain. So this is the kind of coach I had. This was a lesson that he was giving to the team about the importance of going through suffering. He's telling this story to an NFL team. And he's saying, my 3-year-old son walked into the kitchen, reached into a 350-degree oven, pulled out a pan of baking chocolate chip cookies and began eating them and could not feel any pain. And we had to rush him to the emergency room. 3rd-degree burns on his hands and on his face. My son will never be able to learn through the suffering of pain. And it was this powerful moment. I kind of get chills here, but it was this powerful moment of like, look, pain is important. Going through the fire is important. And it teaches us things about ourselves and about our environment that we would never learn in any other situation.
Right.
So that's when you lean on your belief of endurance. That's on your belief of perseverance, right? That you are capable. You are capable of enduring the fire. And through that endurance, you will learn things about yourselves that will make you better.
I think it's a beautiful message for the leaders who are listening, right? Who are feeling just burnout. They're empty, right? Energy wise. And I think the thing I'm getting from this over and over, Ben, is just like, go back to what you know to be true. In those moments of trial, in those moments of, look at what this year so far, right, is. Like, if you have that solid grounding, it doesn't make it easy to go through these times or to go through the hard parts. It just makes it tolerable, and you can see past them sometimes. I still have to go through them, but I know there's a light on the other side. And so that's what I've almost trained in myself to, like, it's the idea of, why is this happening to me? And switching it to, what is this preparing me for?
Yeah.
There must be something else, right? I'm building muscle so that I can take a future challenge.
Yes. Yep. And laying that foundation of what you know. I mean, that's what you've done in so many companies with culture, is you've taken this ethereal theme that everybody talks about, that people don't know how to put their finger on it. And you've come in and you have extracted all those beliefs and all those values and made it into concrete. You've actually laid a foundation that they never had before. So in the past, when they were going through things, they would fall into quicksand.
Yeah.
And now they fall back onto a foundation of truth that they can depend on.
Right.
And we have to take that same approach to our lives, right? So when we're going through burnout as leaders and when we're in the valleys, we have actually taken the things that sustain us and actually materialize them so that we can fall back in it. So that's one exercise that I think all leaders should do is, really clarify, write this stuff, right? Write down what you believe, why, how you want to reflect those beliefs. And that alone is going to give you your own personal creed that guide you so that when you fall back and it's like you go to your desk and you put your hands on your face, which I've done so many times, like what is going on, that I can look and find my creed. I can find those objective truths that can pull me out of that.
Yes. It's a great suggestion other than reading the Champion's Creed. It's always a suggestion for everybody listening. We'll make sure and put info for the book. We'll put info, benutecht.com, any other, just pieces of how people can connect with you, find you. You are an amazing speaker. So if people are looking for that inspiration, right, and that storytelling, I think you're one of the best.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just benutechtspeaks.com. I'm super accessible on LinkedIn. I've really enjoyed, about a month ago, I started doing these culture.
I love them. I love them.
So I'm doing those every other day and just trying to just pour into people.
Yes, you are so good at that. And they uplift me. Every time I see one pop in my feed, I'm always listening to it. I want to go through a few of the bonus round questions. They're just kind of fun for you. What's your go-to song? When you need to reset your energy, what song do you put on?
Oh my gosh.
And knowing you can hit every note and sing along.
Well, I feel like there's different circumstances that pull on different songs.
Yeah. You're having a rough day. You need your energy boost. What is it?
Oh, I'm having a rough day. I need my energy boost. I'm probably going with like either U2, It's a Beautiful Day, or believe it or not, like I go right back to high school football and I play Thunderstruck by AC/DC. Like it gets me going,
I love this. We're making a playlist for the podcast.
Cool.
With everyone's choice of songs, and then we're going to share it out with people. So we're kind of building the playlist right now. So it really does matter. I love this because I love both of those songs. What's a book or a podcast or something that really changed your perspective, right? You had that moment.
Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. It just blew my mind.
Yeah. The humanity of it.
About the power of intentionality.
Yes.
And his culture of hospitality, his culture of serving people and how to create memorable experiences is on a Disney level. It's on a Disney level. And I think that the book is so great because while it is applied to Michelin stars and world-class restaurants, it fits in every single industry in the world.
And I think it fits in just how we treat each other, regardless of industry. I mean, it's like...
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, think about that. If we approached our relationships with that level of intentionality to create uplifting and memorable experiences, how would that change our relationships?
Right. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I'm big on energy, and to lead well, you need to be well. What's one thing that you consistently do to help manage your own energy?
I infrared sauna and cold tub every morning.
Okay, I'm at the infrared and I have.
Yeah, and that's that kind of a system is so important, right? It's forcing myself to get up early. I have my cup of coffee. I do my daily devotional. I work out for 45 to 60 minutes, and then I plunge.
Yeah,
and
I love it. It's a ritual.
I'm up, back upstairs, 7:00, ready to rock.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so last question. I'm going to give you a billboard on a major highway, and you can put anything on it. for leaders to see, what would you put on it right now?
Believe.
Ted Lasso. I love it.
My second chapter in the book is called The Lasso Effect, but it's believe. Yeah, the number one word that people use to describe what matters most in their life is believe. And I mean, think about it. When people are asking you about, family or politics or the things that are like, deeply entrenched, we say, well, I believe that. It's this universal connection between every single human being. And to me, that encapsulates it all. Believe in yourself, believe in the people that you care most about, believe in the purpose of the work that you're doing, right? And that should foster, the reason why you exist, what your calling is, right? Like the difference between opportunity and assignment. Think about that. We always say, well, I had this new opportunity but an assignment is a calling, and to step into work every day, viewing it as an assignment, and that assignment is connected to impacting, everybody around you.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I love you more every time we talk about, and I really mean this. Like, you have been such a friend behind the scenes on this journey of entrepreneurship, which you've also been on. And I just appreciate you.
Yeah,
I always know you'll show up and you'll tell everything, right? You'll be vulnerable. And I just appreciate that about you.
Well, thanks, Jamie.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
And to the listeners, I have so many, I don't even know what I'm going to title this podcast, but like this is about humanity and owning your role in it, right? And how do you stay in a good space so you can be that for others? Because there's a lot of people that need inspiration right now. And I think this conversation will be that, Ben. So I appreciate all of this so much. We'll see you guys next time. Success isn't just about reaching the top. It's about what you discover once you're there. Here on View from the Top, we explore the stories, the setbacks, and the inner work that redefine what success really means. If this episode resonated with you, I'd encourage you to share it with someone who might need it right now. And to stay connected, make sure and subscribe so you get notified when we release new episodes. You can connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, or visit my website at jamietates.com. All of the links are in the show notes. Thank you for listening to View from the Top. We'll see you at the top and beyond.